The other side of the spectrum is, let's say he never gets scared of people, right? And we always let people come up and pet him, and he loves it, right? And he goes crazy, he loves it, right? We're teaching him that every time you see people when we're out on walks, get really amped up because you might get something from them. So give me the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to hear a little bit of everything.
The good is he's doing really well. He's doing a lot better with the cats.
Cool, good.
We've been figuring that situation out.
And as far as that, did you just correct him a couple times for chasing them?
I just corrected him every time he chased them.
Yep.
Now he's very vocal around them. Occasionally he'll growl, and I correct him when he does that.
Okay. Are you still correcting him really high for that?
Not as high as we were.
Okay. And I would keep it high for it. Because the problem is, or the thing is, I should say, the reason why he started getting better with them is because that correction was so motivating. Okay. So now if we start toning it back, if he still has a little piece of his brain that's like, I really want to go chase him still, he's going to start pushing that boundary again, right? So just get it under control. We're not looking for the ability to correct at a lower level. We're looking for it to just stop.
Yeah, no, so he's doing pretty good. A couple things I wanted to kind of brush up on is the walking.
Okay.
He's been pulling a little bit.
Yep, that's fine.
A little bit of anxiety still in the crate. And then when we leave the room.
Okay.
Like if I put him in a bed stay like this, and then I'm going to go actually turn the TV off.
Yeah, go ahead.
He cries and gets very anxious when we leave the room. So I don't know how to correct that because I feel like he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. But with the whining and the crying, like I don't know what to do about that.
Well, so no different than what we just saw with the barking on the bed, right? When we walked in, he's barking his head off, obviously, right? And we didn't correct for that because he was holding the bed stay, but he did ultimately make the mistake, right? So usually the barking, the whining, stuff like that, if it starts to escalate, it's usually a sign he's about to make a mistake in a minute. And then I'll just be extra firm on that mistake that he makes then at that point, right? So I would say then, if you're noticing some issues with him holding it when you're out of the room, or just general antsiness like this, right? I wouldn't even call this like separation anxiety. This is just antsy German Shepherd, right? He's fidgeting around on there. He's like, I'd really like to get up and go over and say hi to them and this and that. And he just has to learn that you just got to stay there, right? So you're going to see a little bit of this, right? But I would push the envelope with it a little bit, and then also getting back to level-wise, right, 15, 20, that's really low. You know, listen, it's working, and that's fine, right? It's working, but I would try to capitalize on the mistakes a little bit more to hit a point where you really, really see a reduction and need to use it at all.
Okay. So we were correcting him, like because we were upstairs, we would just bring this with us upstairs. And eventually, like, he would just fall asleep. He still does it every time we put him in there, so I don't know if I'm, like, not getting the message across, like...
That's exactly what we were just talking about, right? You're interrupting it in the moment, and then he falls asleep, but it's not leaving enough of a lasting inhibition on the behavior, right? Which is why he still will do it every time you go to put him into it, right? Yeah. So, much higher with it, you know. I mean, I would say when he would do that with us in the crate for that first week, I want to say, I could be wrong about this, but I want to say he was in like the 70, 80 range for it.
Really?
You know, it was very motivating. It was like, can't do that, got the message, and then just stopped, right? Yeah. So I'm not necessarily saying go to that, but I'm saying definitely you want to make sure it's much more motivating than what it is currently. Okay. So. And that's a common thing I would say, like first lesson back, you know, after the dog's been home, is usually they're doing pretty good, but the missing link is usually the accountability is not high enough, you know? And then I have people make that adjustment, and then once they make that adjustment, it's like we're kind of off to the races with things. Just letting us know that he's mad about it. Finally, oh my gosh.
And then how do I, you know what I wanted to ask you as well, when we are walking, if somebody wants to come up to him and pet him, which I'm totally fine with, what do I have him sit, or like what's
Well, I have to give you my spiel, right, on generally on-leash greetings are not very good, right? Couple reasons for that, right? Reason number one is he's restrained, right? So even though right now he may be fine with it, right, and he might like the interaction and stuff like that, if hypothetically somebody comes up to him and he gets spooked by it for whatever reason, and he tries to get away but can't because he's on a leash, his only defense at that point is start reacting, and then they learn that I could bark and react and make people go away.
Okay.
The other side of the spectrum is, let's say he never gets scared of people, right? And we always let people come up and pet him, and he loves it, right? And he goes crazy, loves it, right? We're teaching him that every time you see people when we're out on walks, get really amped up because you might get something from them, right? And especially if we're already still having some issues with him being compliant on the walk, that's just going to make it more difficult for you, right?
Yes.
So again, that's kind of my spiel with it. And again, you get to, I don't remember how Gracie was with those types of things.
Yeah.
But German Shepherds in general, I would say one of the predominant traits we see with them is leash reactivity, right? Where they do get really frustrated because they're on the restraint and they'll start displaying it with the big barking, displays, and stuff like that. And he's very young right now still. And as you start moving into maturity, which is usually like 8 months to a year and a half, you might see his overall demeanor and temperament shift a little bit. And that doesn't mean he's going to turn into a monster by any means, right? But he might start getting a little bit more apprehensive of people, right, or things like that.
Gracie, she didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yep.
Like, she was just like,
Yep.
didn't want to socialize with anybody but us. And then I'm just not used to it because he's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
He's, like, into everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Like,
So I personally, right, I'm not a fan of the on-leash greetings, right? Okay. I think when we're out and about, the best thing we can do, especially with a young dog, is teach them not even to be concerned with people and dogs, right? Okay. Treat them like furniture. And then you could socialize, like I'm glad he likes people and likes playing and stuff like that, right? Yeah. But we could save it for situations where he's off-leash, where he can move around, and if he does get spooked, move away, in the house, if you're off-leash at the park with him, situations like that, you know what I mean? So that's kind of my spiel with it, Some people take that and say, all right, we're going to do that, right? Yeah. Other people still kind of do the greetings every now and then, And I guess my only recommendation is, like, if you're going to do it, you just got to make sure that you have him under total control while you're doing it, right? So my one dog, Vera, who is like a social butterfly of a dog, like she loves people, loves kids, stuff like that. Every once in a blue moon, I'll let somebody pet her, And if I do, I'll usually put her into a downstay, have her hold that position, have them interact with her. And I almost use it as like a training exercise, right? Yeah. So. And then let's say, sometimes you do that, other times you don't want people petting him, and somebody asks, hey, can I pet your dog? My go-to is always just, sorry, we're training. Yeah. Because it's not like he's like a vicious monster and you'd be like, no, my dog's aggressive. Or somebody asks, hey, is he friendly? It's like, I don't want to say no, right? But at the same time, like, we're training right now. We're not interacting, So I would lean you towards maybe don't worry about the on-leash greetings for now, But if you're going to do it, that's how I would kind of go about it. So, okay, great. Looks good. Let's go ahead and grab his leash. Let's take him outside, and we'll go ahead and do some walking with him. Okay, so a couple things. So obviously when you remember when we were inside, we were working the come command, right? Which was basically just come to me and stay with me. That's what we use as our leash walking command here. So what I'm gonna do in a second, Murphy, come, is I'm gonna give that command. No, Murphy, come. And I'm just gonna enforce that command first and foremost here. Now, one mistake a lot of people will make post-training is they rely entirely too much on the leash, right? So I saw when you took them out, you had it really short and stuff, right? We want to be able to enforce all of this without the need of the leash, right? We're essentially simulating as if he were off of the leash, right? So what I'm going to do in a second here, now that I have him in that come command, is I'm just going to walk him up and down a couple times. I'll have you stay here to start. I'm going to kind of get him primed up and in the groove, and then I'll have you jump into this, and you can kind of just watch how I do it. Murphy, come. So totally loose on that leash. Obviously, just want him to stay kind of in my bubble with me. Same deal. You can see he's pushing ahead a little bit because he wants to get to you, but he's still catching himself, right? So I'm okay with that right now. Good job, buddy. That was better. Good job.
Yeah, I was really focused on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just, I don't know, kind of like all over the place for me. But.
Yep. A lot of it is just the timing with the correction, how we're holding the leash, and obviously our level. So I'm going to have you give this a go here next. We'll see what it looks like. relax. Very good. So wherever you want, you do another down stay. Much better that time. Okay, so here's what you're going to do next. I want you to do the exact same thing, but without having the leash in your hand. Well, I mean, he was pulling, right? But we were probably just keeping our parameters a little too tight with the leash and not giving him enough flexibility with it, you know? So I would say, like, with a lot of this stuff, we almost want to keep looser parameters, but be much more strict on those loose parameters, right? So in some of those cases, when he was getting like a little bit ahead of you, I wasn't nagging him over it, but once he committedly made that mistake, we really got on him for that, right? And it ultimately wound up then taking the form of what we actually wanted him to do, you know? But because the corrections were more clear to him. As opposed to, like, I don't think he's super conscious of being an inch ahead of you and then 3 inches ahead. You know what I mean? Like, it's harder for him to grasp that. So, cool. Let's go ahead and take him back inside. You can pop him on the bed. Good, big guy. All right, so let's do one more where we just go out of sight here. We'll just kind of see how he does with that stuff. So thing number 1 is going to be the out of sight bed stays. Right? Just because you haven't put a lot of formal practice into that, push the envelope in situations where he's going to make the mistake to get past that hurdle, right? Because if we're kind of constantly holding his hand of like, we're in sight, we're watching you, and he's doing well with it, but like he gets antsy the second we walk out, we got to get past that next, right? So that's thing number 1. Thing number 2 is you're walking, obviously. I would do a combination of practice on leash and off leash with it. Right? Off leash, maybe just up and down the block like that to help you visualize it, build your confidence in having him off leash if you didn't already have it, obviously. Then obviously on leash, and just make sure you are just as loose as you can be on it. Right? I literally, like, I almost do like crossbody like that, where I hold it like almost at the end of the leash so he could fully get out there so that I could see those mistakes and correct for them. Right? You just want to eliminate tension, right? Any tension on this leash, it just sets dogs off, right? And causes them to want to fight into it even more, you know? And then thing number 3 is going to be obviously the digging in the crate. Just nip that in the butt at this point. Just have that level really high for it. I probably would be 70, 80, something like that. Just make sure it's a nice high correction so you don't have to keep nagging him over it. And then overall, I would probably work him a little higher for stuff. You know? But those 3 things, that's what I'm seeing right now. If you see any issues, just nip that in the butt right now, you know? But that's good. We'll see that continue to get better. Buddy, you're doing good. Keep it up. Keep it up. All right, guys, so we're out here with Atos. So he just got here yesterday. He's done some training before. We're here to kind of brush up on his commands, make sure we move him into an off-leash obedience program. He needs a lot of work with socializing with other dogs. But one of the first things that I'd like to establish with a lot of these dogs as we're working through the program is our nonverbal leash communication, right? So the leash is the most black and white thing that you could teach with all of your dogs. You don't need any commands to do it, right? And from there, once you have your leash pressure established, you could use it to layer in your e-collar pressure. You could use it to then add positive reinforcement and to teach your formal commands and stuff. But everything starts with black and white communication. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna demonstrate to you how with no words, I could communicate with this dog very effectively because he understands the directional component of the leash. So obviously walking around, he knows if he feels pressure in any particular direction. That means to move with that pressure. Pressure up on the leash means to get into a sit position. Pressure down on the leash means to get into a down position. I could furthermore apply pressure back up and teach him to move back into a sit. We can move and get him ultimately onto a bed. And then I also can add downward pressure to get him into a down position. So I'll demonstrate those one more time here. So moving in my direction. Pressure up. Pressure down. Pressure forward. Pressure onto an object. Pressure down on an object. And because I have all of that established, we have our sits, we have our downs, we have our bed command, we have our healing, and we obviously have our come commands, right? And because I have all that established, now I can start layering in our formal commands into things, and I can make sure that we're adding a lot of positive reinforcement into doing those commands correctly. Additionally, he's very reactive to other dogs. We're working him for the first time in a room where there's a dog right on the other side of this barrier right here doing a session, which was a massive distraction for him initially. And he's been working for a long time now. I think this is like, honestly, probably like an hour and a half into us working with him. So he's pretty tired and we're about to wrap that session up. So doing great so far, but cool little demonstration of like what leash pressure actually is with dogs.
The best damn dog around, boy. Boy. I love you. Okay, ready? You done good, kid. You get to go home tomorrow. You don't even know. This is Thanos. He came here about 4 weeks ago. He leaves tomorrow. So I'm going to talk a little bit about his kind of story while he's been here over these past 4 weeks. So he came here with a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear-based reactivity towards strangers, towards dogs, and a couple incidences with just getting a little nippy with his owners in situations of putting his collars on and picking him up and giving him baths and all that stuff. So, which is pretty common, but with the reactivity, it was just getting a little too much, too dangerous kind of for the owners. So the first day we had him, we kind of started addressing that. We started trying to work on that muzzle training, desensitizing him to that muzzle training so that we could start kind of progressing through the nail trims and the baths and all those other issues. He was not a huge fan at first of me, of the muzzle, of really anyone here. But just after a day or two, we were able to kind of break down those barriers a little bit and show him that it's not that scary. What I'm trying to do is not trying to be harmful in any way. So we were able to get that muzzle on and do it multiple times with that repetition throughout those first couple days. We were able to do his nails, which they weren't able to do in a long time. So it's really, really important that we were able to do that because it was causing him a little discomfort. So we addressed that. We addressed the bath, gave him a couple baths while he was here just to kind of practice with it. And he's done really, really good with all of it. So I think after initially breaking down those walls of kind of that fear-based aggression, where he's kind of put that up as a good defense to get people away from him when he's feeling uncomfortable or anxious or anything like that, we've been able to create a really, really good, healthy relationship between me and him, where I'm now able to kind of do all of those things without the muzzle even being on, because he's been able to understand, okay, this is something that is just gonna happen and it's not worth kind of freaking out and nipping and biting and all that stuff for. On the screen here as well, you can kind of see another trainer here at the facility working with him. Obviously me and him, again, have built a really good relationship, but because it was something that even with the owners, they were kind of struggling to do the nails and everything, I wanted to get him around and, working with as many people and trainers as possible. So having Michelle kind of do those nails as well with him, practicing that muzzle training with him was a great way to kind of let him know that it's not just me, you have to be okay with doing it. It is everyone. And he did amazing with her and has done really good with many other trainers here. So going forward in the send home with the owners, it'll be something that obviously that transition will be much easier because he knows it's not just me he has to do it with. After we got those initial behavioral issues out of the way and we're kind of addressing them kind of throughout the weeks, we started kind of working more towards the program that we practice here. And he was a unique kind of dog because I knew how scared kind of he was and how easily some dogs like him can get shut down with kind of more of that negative reinforcement. It's something that we were able to come in it in a way of really gearing it towards pumping him up, making him as excited as possible with the training, and motivating for him to want to keep doing this training. And it worked great for him. Every time he comes out of the crate, every time we do a session, he is just so pumped to be out, so pumped to be there. And we actually just finished the session, so that's why he's probably so tired right now. But it's just been a very, very good kind of 4 weeks, I think, for him and for me in terms of building that relationship. I'm super excited for him to graduate tomorrow and to show him to his parents so that they can kind of continue this progress and kind of build that relationship with them going home. Another big thing that we wanted to focus on while here is socialization with the other dogs so that there isn't that much fear aggression kind of on the walks, not lunging or barking or anything like that, which we've been able to achieve. He's made a lot of progress in his socialization, where at first he was kind of nervous, kind of hung out of the big circle of the dogs playing around. Now he's right in the mix, he's jumping around, he's chasing all the other dogs, he's joining in on all that fun. So that was really, really exciting to kind of see that change as well. As we kind of wrapped up these few weeks, just like many other dogs here, we've kind of started pushing those limits a little bit more, getting them out and about around a lot of distractions, and we've been able to see, you know, this kind of come full circle and check all these boxes in terms of, you know, kind of what we set out to achieve. So I am very proud of him. I think his parents are going to be very proud of him. I hope you've seen this video and his progress. You will be very proud of him. He's come a long way, and I'm very excited to see kind of where he goes from here.
Slap me, I leave my stain. Bad little bitty keep brain, so my wrist on rain. Ran up out the bed.
What's up, man? You know, hanging out. What's our girl here up to? Huh? What's our girl here up to? I want to walk back and stuff, but she sees you, so no. I'm sorry. Alright, don't embarrass. Yeah, I know. Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Hi.
My girlfriend. In town again?
Yeah.
Nice. Here for a while this time, or?
I leave tomorrow.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You guys do anything fun while you're out here?
Yeah. Like cabins at night.
Oh yeah? Where at?
Southington, Ohio?
Southington? Is that near like Amish country kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm familiar with those. Are those like getaway cabins?
Oh, we didn't do the getaway cabin. It was like an Airbnb. It was like an 8th grade.
Oh, that's cool. Did you take Sora?
They didn't allow dogs. So
Oh, yeah.
the getaways they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the getaways are pretty dog friendly. Those look pretty sweet. We've looked into them a couple of times. Nice.
So Louie came here with some kind of reactivity towards other dogs, and it was never serious or anything, but it just, her excitement level, stimulation level was just so high and strong that it was something that her owners kind of wanted help with. So working on that, we focused more so on her socialization, and that was something that we kind of touched base on relatively early in the board and train, as well as a lot of crate training. Obviously boarding here, we do a lot of crate time, so that was good to kind of work through as well with reactivity with the dogs going by, people coming by and stuff like that. Socialization from the get-go, day one, she was amazing. She obviously has a lot of high energy, but it's something that done in the right setting and with the right dogs, she was able to express that energy and get it out in a very successful way that allowed her to be able to kind of learn from the dogs how far she can take it, what's appropriate, and where that threshold is where it becomes inappropriate. So that was really helpful for her. In terms of the program itself, in terms of the actual training, she caught onto it incredibly quickly. She's a very, very smart, intelligent dog, and her food motivation was always very high. So from the start, she picked up on things very quickly, so we were able to move into working through or with distractions and adding duration into our sessions. We started going to Edgewater a lot and working on her reactivity with the dogs on leash out there, which has improved drastically as well, or great as well. So it's something that she's been a very good dog to work with. I've really enjoyed my time with working with her because she's a little crazy, but also happy-go-lucky kind of attitude, as well as super motivated and very, you know, kind of aware of her surroundings, even when she kind of is going a little crazy. So it's something that with this training, I found that our communication skills have gotten a lot better through these weeks, being able to work on that. Another one thing that I know that the owners wanted to kind of work on was her grooming, her nail trims and stuff like that. So that is something that we've also been touching base on, progressing through, kind of working a little bit at a time with each foot at a time, kind of desensitizing her to that. We do use the Dremel, which can be a little fearful or scary for some of the dogs. So getting over that hump has been something that we've been working on progressing through these past few weeks. Other than that, she's really been a joy. I think meeting up with her owners, I think they're going to be very excited to kind of see the progress that she's made. And, you know, going home, having that clear, positive transition is going to be super important as well. But that's Louie, my little buddy. That's her story.